We have with us today was local historian and photographer and other pharmacist. That too. I shouldn't say that maybe.
They'll want to see my trunk.
Jim Middleton. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Jim Middleton. Thank you. Well, welcome to Jim Middleton's Anonymous, and all the therapy that can come with that. That can give you a nightmare.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll rewind a little bit because I see people just coming in. The point of the discussion is we're going to look at what film was at the dawn of sound, what we could do for entertainment, where was it in the 1930s, and how insanely lucky we are to have a 20 or so minute document of a historic event that took place in downtown Battle Creek in 1931. In 1931, to have a film camera was one thing. To have a film camera like this, which was about $200 in 1931, was even a bigger deal. To know how to use a camera like this is nothing short of astonishing. You have, again, lenses that are very specific and high ground precision material. You have a camera that can move forward, backward, one frame at a time. It can run for about 30 seconds on a winding, and if that doesn't work, you pull out the hand crank. If you run to the end, it goes ding, 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 and you say, okay, fine, I got it covered. And you start cranking it by hand, just like you see in the silent movie days. This camera was able to shoot several documentaries. The one that survives to this day is the Battle Creek Centennial from 1931, involving the parade, and more interestingly to today's audiences, not to the kids that had to watch it in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s in the Battle Creek High School, but they have early farm implements. They have local dignitaries giving speeches that you fortunately can't hear because it's still a silent movie. And to find something like that here in a town of our size is unusual in itself. To have it still exist is even more heartwarming, actually. So I was thrilled to get the camera. It's sort of by serendipitous. I just happened to come across it. It was there. It was for sale. Hey, yeah, sure, it's a cool camera. I had a need for it. Shortly thereafter, I shot a film for that dance group over in Ann Arbor that time. And then I've used it for a few projects, but then film itself, to do this today, each reel of film is something like $150 for about 4 minutes worth of documentation. Something that's financially not really within anyone's usual budget now. And you have to have a 16mm projector, and if you put sound onto it, you have an extra expense. Usually a 5-minute film will cost you about $8,000 to $10,000 to get produced, printed, and documented, and ready to be projected. That's why when you hear people talk about digital films and films that are on film, and the difference of it is that because shooting in 70mm or shooting in 35mm is incredibly expensive. When we have switched to digital, suddenly the big need for silver and silver nitrate film stock went away. So the people who are making film, per se, they found a big hit to their business. Kodak, for example, was slow to get into digital, and they tanked as a result. The irony is now Kodak will take your film and they will digitize it for you. Which, as soon as I find another print of this 16mm one, there are a few floating around town, I'm going to snag it and send it off to Rochester and have it digitized. What I did here is I literally did it the old-fashioned way. I had a 5-blade projector that would run 16mm film. Is what they would use at a TV station if they wanted to run a movie. And then I hooked that up and had it against a set of mirrors into my video camera. And about 15 years ago, that's what I did. I made a video transfer. Because the camera had to be run at a certain speed, at the time it was 18 frames per second, the video could only record at 30 frames per second. I had to adjust the camera and projector to send this off at a certain speed so that there are artifacts and visual challenges with it. but it exists at least so we can look at it. To show you the difference, you can get a 16 millimeter film from the 1950s, find a projector, you can show it. This first digital format that I put together 15 years ago, I went to prepare it for this presentation today. No computer can read it anymore. I had to go back to my original video, transfer it again to digital. So if you're thinking that, hey, I'll have it, it's okay, I'll have it forever, it's in the cloud, I'll have it forever, it's on a disk, I'll have it forever, it's digital, about every 5 to 10 years, you better check your files. Yeah, I've lost a lot of video from the late 70s, so it's very important that you work with that. The film that's running behind us here is a short film called Camera Makes Whoopee, using this camera. This camera could do double exposure, multiple exposure. You could put 7 people on the screen at once and it's all the same person. You could do irises in, fade ins, fade outs, dissolves, everything within the camera. It required that you sit down and think it through before you shot. There wasn't anything like, oh, we'll fix it in post-production. You didn't have that. You had to do it in the camera. And that was pretty much the state of affairs for non-commercial, big Hollywood budget type things. Hollywood would use a film printer, an optical printer, to do multiple exposures and special effects. If you were a high-end amateur user, this was kind of the state of the art. This is showing some of the various things it could do. Now, Norman McLaren, who made this film back in the 30s, he was specializing at the time in animation. And so you see multiple exposures with some animation going on in the background, little indications of what he's trying to scare people with. Oh, that's mask scary. Anyway, he has all these things going on, but he did it all within the camera. It wasn't like he say, hey, I sent to the lab, put an A and a B and a C roll together, do a multiple. Nope, in the camera. When you got done filming one scene, he wanted to have something on top of it. He had to remember how many times or how many seconds he had gone into it, back crank the camera that number of seconds, reset the exposure so it wouldn't be too overexposed, film it again, and hope that he didn't jank the camera a little bit and make it an unintended multiple exposure. Oh yeah, that must be the dessert tray going away. Yep. So his big deal was when he got this finished, he was able to parlay this into a film career at the Film Board of Canada, which netted him several Oscars. He's known for a stop motion film in the 50s called Neighbors, which was the groundbreaking type of style that was later used in the 70s for gasoline commercials where people seem to be scooting along on their fannies, and it's all sort of an animation type of thing. He originated a lot of that work. But even that kind of work goes back many, many years, and I'm going to show you some examples. And before I run the Brigham film, the reason why I show you these examples is because of my concern of film preservation and the likelihood of things vanishing easily. I want to show you what happens. We have films that exist back to 1900, back to 1899, that we can still watch. But then, and we can watch them because in 1899 and 1900, they tended to run 1 to 1.5 minutes in length. And so it's easy to preserve and keep track of a film like that. I'm going to show you a little clip too of what happens when you can't do that. Films of the time were using what they called nitrate stock. It's the same kind of stuff that was used in gunpowder, in blasting caps, and it would decompose, it would rot, it would smell to the heavens. It was just dreadful. It smelled like urine, frankly, because it became essentially ammonium nitrate. At one point it just starts bubbling, effervescing, and then the next point is don't even get anything warm near it. It will explode. The highest paid profession you could be in 1905 in Battle Creek was a film projectionist. You were put in an asbestos box with poor ventilation, and you were told, run the movies and I hope you live through it. By the way, it'd be a good idea if you don't smoke. And they okay. So when you see old things where they show asbestos curtains and all that type of stuff, it was because they were worried about films setting the place on fire. When the Post Theater opened up here in 1905, it was promoted as being a fireproof theater because they had isolated the film projectionist. Another theater in town had recently burned, and it stayed that way. So anyway, he made this little film here, and we're going to see if we can get back to the other examples on this. And I'm going to see if we can kill a light Back, that might work there. There you go.
Thank you.
There you go. All right, now let's see if we get back to the menu. The fun thing about this new technology is you can see the menu, I cannot. Now to show you what's interesting about these films, here is one from 1902, and we think of films as being artifacts and all kind of primitive, and it does look rather primitive, but do you notice something? It's color. You had color film in 1902. The tough part of it is, each one of those frames is hand colored. They would have matrices and they would have stencils and they would put this all together frame by frame. Now, this is a film from one of the first science fiction movies, a clip from it. It's called A Trip to the Moon, 1902. Georges Méliès. And you see he's ready to go, and we're going to have the iconic image from it shortly. And here it comes.
That's the one.
Onward and inward. Now, what's interesting about this film is, in keeping with production methods of the early 1900s, there were two cameras running all the time. One to create a European negative, one to create an American negative. And they were separated by about 1.5 feet. But they kept filming anyway. Well, what they were able to do with this was when they found these clips that were in color and the two negatives, they were able to put this together as a stereo film from 1902. If you ever had the chance to see the movie Hugo in the theaters in 3D, as a Martin Scorsese, he had to make a movie that his grandkids would be able to watch. If you get to see that, they have that 3D clip toward the end. It's rather astonishing. Now, I don't want to show that again. Quit helping me. Just a sec. Okay, now the same man, 2 years before, to show you what multiple exposures could do, he did a film he called The One-Man Band. Georges Méliès plays all 7 parts. What he was doing is, he was having the cameraman film him do each routine, then they backwind it for 90 seconds, he would do it in the next chair. So that's him on all 7 chairs, playing all 7 instruments, and it's 119 years ago. Now, much was made when Buster Keaton did something similar in the Playhouse in 1921, but even then, the technique was 20 years old. Everyone piles together. Now, he started his career as a stage magician, saw a movie camera from the Lumiere brothers, and said, hey, can I buy that camera? And they said, no, be a magician, you'll be better off. He went home and he built a camera, and he built a projector. So these films are his literal independent productions. So he is having a blast. Very creative guy. Now this is 1900. Now it's important to understand that's 1.5 minutes long. It's easy to preserve that. And it's amazing that it exists because so many of his films ended up getting destroyed during World War I to make rubber and material to build soldiers' boots. Another example. Now this is a case of hyper close-up. They didn't know how to cut to a close-up, and they were scared that it would disturb audiences if they did. So what they did in this case is, this is another magician, he's from England, and he said, okay, I'll show you what I want to do. Just keep it focused on me, and I'll just get right up to the camera. This is called the Big Swallow, and you'll see in a minute why. He's objecting to having his photograph taken. And then you get to see what bad dentistry existed back in 1900. And he's pretty proud of himself there. The Méliès kept doing more of his types of productions.
En 1902,
And back in the 30s, they
tourne
uncovered a lot of his
L'homme à la
work.
tête en
And here's a
caoutchouc.
case of one of the films he did. It's called the Indian Rubber Head, made of Indian rubber. And he always liked to make it look very theatrical. It's like you're always sitting in the 5th row watching him do a stage show. This whole thing was put together under, he's showing you all the apparatus. He says, okay, let's get the Indian head out here. Here we go. Now, of course, that's him doing it too. Yes.
Why would you make it that? I don't know. He was a eccentric guy.
Yeah. Now he had to time it, so when he pulls that valve, the head shrinks.
Did he make a lot of money doing that?
Well, he made a lot of money until somebody by the name of Thomas Edison. What he would do is he would sell his prints outright. He didn't license them. He'd sell print, something like this. He'd sell it for 50 francs. Here, buy a print. Edison sent his men over to Paris, bought all his prints, came to the United States, bootlegged every one of them. And by 1917, he was pretty much out of business. He ended his career in the 30s. He was selling toys at one of the train stops.
Oh my God.
And one of the people who were involved with the film community in the 30s found out that's what happened to him, and he in turn put on a big benefit for him, and that helped resurrect his interest in him. But his films are thought to be horribly lost, and they've uncovered about 300 of his short films now, running from 1895 or so till about 1920.
Good.
Now this is what shows what happens when a film is not retained or preserved. You see the flickering and the gobbledygook on the sides here? That's what they call nitrate decomposition. And one of the benefits of doing a movie the way we did it here, Brigham did it here, yeah.
So cute.
Yeah, it's kind of twisted. Anyway, this is a stop motion animation by a guy named Charlie Bowers. He started his film career doing Charlie Chaplin animation shorts, graduated to Mutt and Jeff, and then he made animation a legitimate business because he was the first person to document embezzling from an animation studio. He created a whole series of fake payroll so he would give himself a raise. Anytime he wanted a raise, he'd hire somebody new and just keep their check. Well, they tracked him down, but his stop motion stuff is rather astonishing. But as you can see, he didn't have a preservationist. And his films tend to be two-reelers, and this is the fate of many of them. You can almost see what's going on. At this point, the film has to be run through a film printer. You can't run this through a projector because it would explode. Now, it's rumored that there is a film that Dr. John Harvey Kellogg made back in the 20s. When I talked to Duff Stoltz, when he first had told me about it, he says he doesn't like to open the can because it smells really bad. That tells me that the film is no longer with us. But it was supposed to be a document on how to properly cook your food. So this gives us kind of a background of what we're looking at when it comes to the the challenges and benefits of shooting on film and some of the advantages we have in Battle Creek of all places. Grand Rapids doesn't have anything like this from the 30s. You might see national newsreels, but you didn't have somebody locally out there with a camera like this. Now what we're going to look at next is a collection of stills from the 1931 parade. It went on for 3 hours. It took about 3 years to plan. And it hit here in Battle Creek in 1931 at a time when we were, oh, that's great. What do we do? At a time when we were 18 months into the Depression. It brought the governor and the mayor in here for it. So here's the program that went out there. The handwritten parade route by Emery Morris. He wrote this on a piece of stationery. This is where it was going to go. It was a national big deal. At the time, the DeWitt Clinton here, the first railroad engine that we had, was itself 100 years old. They brought it here. We had the parade. It started over at the main intersection, went right through town. We had Remember the Maine, because we had people here for that. We had Native American pavilions. We had a lot on education. We had, that's another shot of the same one. We had a model of the first schoolhouse from 1834. We had a mock-up of what it looked like to be a student inside. Look at the parade. It's 6 people deep. The first Postum serial stop, Postum Company tour, the fire bell from the old courthouse, the Battle Creek Sanitarium. They had a double pavilion here. A nursing pavilion. And I show you these still images because you can look at them and say, wow, look at how big a deal. Look at that places there. They're piled up with the whole stairway. Everybody, I swear, in Calhoun County was here. And you had dignitaries from around the state were here too. Downtown, kicking it. When did we see a crowd like that in Battle Creek?
Look at the downtown now.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody there.
We could run through the middle of town right now. Who would even know? The most impressive thing to me was they did a cavalcade of transportation culminating in an actual fire engine going right through, a train engine, a steam engine going right through the middle of downtown. We had the usual speeches. Dr. Kellogg was there. We had the governor and the mayor there, obviously. Then outside of town, we had the Pioneer Village. It just ran for a couple of days, but look at the amount of work they had to do for a couple of days. They had a Native American pavilion, essentially. They built these pioneer log cabins. These photographs look like they're from 1860.
Yeah.
So what we have now is the video document of it. I'm going to see if I can get the volume of this cut up a little bit. I'm not sure. It may not be too good. I just had some random sounds on here. Now what's maddening to me is I don't know who many of these people are. And we're going to see this recurring events of people who look like they have no teeth and they're doing these characters. And this guy must have been some kind of fun dude. But you'll see him showing up on these things as well. There's a picture of what we had a still of earlier. But again, you see all the folks here. These are award-winning oxen. They're pulling a Model A. That's what I want to do. Just swap that. Native American display with a wigwam. A teepee. Cub Scouts showing the land of everything. Here we have Pioneer covered wagons.
So why was the speed always so much faster?
Well, part of the reason was these films were shot at 16 frames per second, which is in cinematic terms is a foot of film a second. When they would make a film on this, it would be running at 16 frames per second. When I had to do the transfer, the only way it could work is 20 frames per second, so that automatically speeds it up. Sound speed's even faster, it's 24 frames per second, so you're running 50% faster. Now, one of the things I want to do when I get this digitized is to have them, and they're supposed to be able to run this at silent speed. Now, I have been able to stretch print this a little bit. That's why we have a bit of an artifact with some of the movement. So it slows it down a bit. When this was originally shown on a 16mm screen back in high schools every year, grade schools every year, for many years, and Kurt agrees. Yeah, yes, he slept through many of them. I'm sure it's been great. Postal Service here, they would probably be running those at 24 frames per second, so it would be even faster moving than this. I've been able to slow it down about 20%. But you have people coming out with the oldest farm implements. I have no idea what that's for, but and that's the other thing, there's not enough subtitles and not enough names associated with the actors in this. But again, it exists. And this is kind of a rare artifact. What I think is interesting is they there's a bicycle built for two. They start showing how transportation changes. There's the schoolhouse again, only now it's moving. You can actually see it coming right across. And here are those kids who are dutifully filling out the slates. There's the first high school there. Those were little kids, yeah. Teeny little kids. People are much smaller back in 1880. Which, yeah, you see, everyone's wearing a hat too. You get caps and hats. It's just the way. And here we start having the engines coming through.
Yeah.
They're right through downtown. And when they have the older cars showing up here, in our minds, okay, here's a curved dash Oldsmobile or something like that from 1905. Oh, there's a 1908 car. That car was 15 years old, maybe 20 years old when they were filming these things. And you think about how many cars on the road today are 20 years old. Fine. And as a result, you put that in context, how much has changed in a short period for them. This is the Pioneer Village they set up. They dug a well, they were pulling water out of it. This is down where the Hit 'em Here is, near Columbia. So right down there. So they were making it look as authentic as you could, and then they were out there weaving yarn, they were making something in that cauldron, perhaps soap. Candlestick making was part of the demonstration. Running spinning wheels. And I'm suspecting these ladies may have had childhood memories that this is just a recreation of. She knows what she's doing. That's just something you just don't go out there and mess around and start doing. As my lovely wife Ann will attest. We have a spinning wheel at home. I still don't know how she does it.
Yeah.
However, don't prick your finger on any of those. You'll sleep for 100 years.
Candle mold.
Candle making here.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Isn't that fascinating? Wow. I just bought one of those molds. You did? Where'd you buy it? Gettysburg.
It was out on the battlefield. We found it on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's laying out there.
It's laying out there. So you have to dry your candles too, which is kind of fun. For you burn them, you have to dry them. You keep dipping them, get them a little thicker. That's another way of making candles. Now this is in October when they're doing this. And we know October in Michigan isn't always necessarily the coolest month. They're out there chopping wood with iron implements. I'm sure that was easy.
Everything took a lot more work.
Bashing some corn there. I noticed a lot of people are outside because probably it feels a little less uncomfortable than being indoors, not just for the shot. Now here I think we're going to have a lap dissolve here. We dissolve from one image to another. To do that he had to shoot that 25-second piece. Remember that he wanted to do his dissolve. Then for the last 5 seconds he had to slowly fade out what he was cranking, backwind at 5 seconds, and then as he started filming again, slowly fade in to make that dissolve happen. It was all had to be done in camera. And I don't think these guys were necessarily, there goes another one, necessarily able to hold the position that long. So he had to do these things quickly and on the fly. So I suspect that Edward Brigham had some serious camera experience before he came onto this project. Get out there and beat the rug.
Jim, are there any remnants of that cabin?
No, there are no remnants. Kurt and I went out there to try to find the locations of this, and we found generally where it was provided and put out and demonstrated, but there's no sign of it anymore. It's where the little kiddie go-kart area is, and there's a hit 'em here golf course there. It's in that general area. I look at these and say, well, that's sure effective. I hope no one gets hurt.
Well, the ribbon and rose, just so scenic.
Now, if anyone gets to go up to Charlton Park up near Hastings, they have a lot of these implements on display up there. I know what a hoe is, yeah. There you go. That looks like pretty dry and gravelly dirt here. Now, the gentleman here on the far left, I think he's sort of a character in this. He gives it about 110%. Here you go! Here you go!
Hyper.
Yep, and he's, here you go. And I think he took out his dentures on purpose to give him that official look, you know? You mow your lawn that way. There you go. Out in the field, doing your chores with a hat. Yeah, your Sunday go-to meeting hat. That just looks like fun. It's like, hey, wee! Again, the last part of the film is mainly showing farm life implements and also some exposure to surveying techniques of the 19th century. Gosh, I know I'd get hurt by that.
That looks scary.
This, I believe, is a section showing how roads were put together.
Michigan roads.
Michigan roads.
They haven't changed much.
You know, kind of looks like Columbia Avenue, doesn't it?
Dickman Road.
Dickman, yeah. Enough of these shovels. We're just going to go out there and kick it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not too sure if they're just sifting gravel or what they're doing.
Filling potholes.
Filling potholes. 1870 style. And of course, you have a supervisor. You know, you always have to have that.
Where's the donuts?
Yeah. You have to smooth it down a little bit, and then before you know it, let's have a race on it.
That's funny.
This is school discipline section. No.
What is that?
This for thrashing wheat. It's smash. You'll see them getting their upper torso workout here.
Oh.
Take that. Take that. Take that.
Baby in the weeds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Get that lumpy earth back in there. To show it wasn't just one guy having fun. These are a whole bunch of guys.
Thrashing.
Yes.
It's called thrashing.
Thrashing. Well, they say, I'm going to take you out for a thrashing. This is what they meant. Yeah. Just hope that leather strap stays on there okay. That thing would hurt flying around. That's one way of doing it, or you could take it and run it through one of the mills there.
Wow.
Now, these are supposed to be old implements at the time, but I have almost a suspicion they weren't that terribly outmoded by 1931.
That looks easier than thrashing.
Yep. Of course, this is. Okay, it's almost like I can't quite make out the name of the school. I have not identified that one. There's. Oh, okay. Spelling School?
I remember that.
Okay. Where was it located?
B Drive North and B Lake Road.
Okay. Probably the last two blacksmiths in Battle Creek working on this section here. Now he has an apprentice. Again, get your rhythm right. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Well, the guy on the right's the one I think keeps showing up. He was like, "Hey, how you doing here? I told you I had queens here. Well, I'll play euchre with you guys again." Now, one thing it does bring up is that Climax was the first RFD in the United States. And here's an example of twice daily mail delivery. And then they found a lady who was there when it was a new thing. 96 years old in 1931. It's going, "Oh, look, I got mail. What do I do with this? What do I do with this? Oh, there's more? Oh.
Bills.
Yeah, oh. Anything else? Now what do I do with it? Oh, I go over here? Okay. Takes direction well. She's adorable. And then showing how they use it. Then in Climax downtown, the main intersections where they had the stone monument built. That was right there. It said, "Keep right, keep to the right. Please don't run into this." It has been moved. And then they dedicated where the first combines were first used. And that's on the road to Climax. And the dedication monument, or dedication stone and plaque are still there. And of course that calls for a speech. "I dedicate this rock." This lady right here, her expression sums it up.
You brought me so excited.
Oh boy. Could have gone to the show.
Should have gone to the parade.
Yeah. Flash Gordon's at the Strand. Okay. And the monument's still there. Look at all the people they got to show up for it.
Smile.
Yes, everyone's.
People didn't smile.
No, they didn't. They had teeth like that first guy in the big swallow.
That's why their teeth were too.
Yeah. That made in Battle Creek. Native American presence, for whom Battle Creek is named, Battle Creek River and all that fun stuff. They get a cameo in here. Worry about the guy's way he's holding that arrow though. He's like, watch out to be ahead of him. I'm sure there was probably a prepared narrative that went with this to explain what's going on, because at this point you start, here's our guy, you start getting the sensation. It's like, okay, who was here first? Native Americans. Then people start showing up, obviously without a lower plate. Oh, he can spit. Look at that. Yeah. And then they had to have surveyors. Basic sextant. Tools of the trade. So many chains long. Being a surveyor was manual labor. Now, when they first platted out the areas in the counties in Michigan, they did it with concrete slabs, some of which still exist. My dad's house up in Six Lakes, Michigan, up north on M46, we were able to find the original slab that had been put down there in the 1840s. Then once you have the area laid out, and then people with their Sunday bests show up. And they're just singing along. I think they're a little too close. Population boom in 1900. The plow that broke the plains right there. And the dog's the star of that one there.
Definitely.
Look at that.
2 horsepower. He's doing pretty good with that. It's impressive. And this just looks dangerous. Because what you do is you stand on that. And hops around. Yeah, he gets to the side of it finally. That's good. You really get the idea that Michigan had some pretty hard soil. Can ruin the shine on those shoes.
What is that?
It's to flatten things out a bit.
Oh, okay. After they plant, maybe.
Yeah, I think, but
Pack it down.
I think he actually rides this one too, which is kind of, yeah. Very careful.
He's like finally gets to sit down.
Yeah, he finally gets to sit down and he says, you know, I don't think that looks safe. Some of these things, I think they were figuring out how to work them while they were filming it. Meanwhile, the old way works best. Yeah, I don't care. I'm done. Just grow something. Yeah, if it grows, it grows.
Maybe that was fertilizer.
Yeah. I don't even know. But it's one way to get branches off your field. No, that little cranky thing is seeds things. That's good fertilizer. That works. So that's from 1931. Sorry I couldn't get the music to play. Like I said, this is something I put together about 15 years ago. Now, what we did is we went to some of the locations after this just to see where things are. So today for the Pioneer Village, it's essentially off Columbia Avenue. And we went down into the valley there. And this is where the village would have been. And then down further in, it's now the recreation area. You'll hit them here, golf course and little go-karts. It was described back in the time as a natural amphitheater, mainly because it would come right down into there. They have moved it from downtown Climax, but the monument's still there. And they've added another plaque to where the first was commemorating the process. And then this one here represents the postal delivery, which is now across the street from the post office. But it's still there. They haven't torn it down. They didn't send those 300 stones back to where they came from. And that is what I got here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. And like I said, it's my hope that I can get this stuff eventually transferred into a digital format. It'll help with the clarity. Each frame of a 16 millimeter film is almost as clear as you would get from a 35 millimeter still. And being able to get that, be able to get some of these images a little more clear, it'll be kind of a cool thing to work from there. But the next thing is I have to track down where that 16 millimeter print's been placed in the past 16 years. So that's the next challenge. It's always the next challenge. Oh, look, it's going to keep playing on. And I can't tell, so I'm going back to it. So we will do it this way. We will turn this over here.